Coming up in just a moment. Please keep your dial right where it is so you won't ever miss a thing.
The government is revitalizing urban.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Family Time, including those who are joining us on Facebook and on YouTube Live. I am your host for today, Tamika Scott Walters, and as always, we come to you with another interesting topic on Family Time. Now, Family Time is about your issues and your relationships. Whether your family abroad or abroad, we are all about supporting our community. Family Time is produced by the Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to a healthy nation. This evening's topic on Family Time is something we are no stranger to. If we've not experienced it directly, perhaps we are aware of someone who may have. We are talking about the big C, the economic, social, and emotional cost associated with the treatment of cancer in Jamaica, or in fact, any part of the world, can be devastating, particularly if the diagnosis is in the late stages. The most comprehensive and recent reports from the United States of America indicate that the financial cost of cancer care in 2019, and it states the national patient economic burden associated with cancer care was US 21.09 billion. That's billion with a B. Now, of that amount, the patient's out of pocket cost was approximately 16.22 billion. Today's discussion, we will be looking at the financing care. So, how does one finance cancer care, whether for yourself or for a family member? Or we may have to ask, have you been able to finance cancer care? This evening, we have our in house financial guru, our very favorite Shernette Clark, who, as usual, will guide us into wise financial decision making and spending. We also have Richard Dennison, who had to manage the financial cost of his own mom's battle with cancer. Now, let's see what it entails and what we will discuss. The cost of cancer care. We want you to be involved today as much as you can to tell us if you were able to finance cancer care, and if so, how were you able to do it, whether for yourself or for a loved one. We ask that you keep your WhatsApp text or voice notes 30 seconds or less, and you may send it to 876-997-3125 to participate. You may also watch and comment live on our Love 101's Facebook or YouTube page. We will be right back with our very special guests for today, Sharnette and Richard. Soon come.
This Tuesday, November 27, on The Rock with host Bishop Harold Steve Blair and guests Hurley Taylor and Jenny Campbell. They'll look at the topic, the flood. We all know about the most famous flood recorded in Genesis 6 through 9, and some of us have also experienced our own flood where we live. What are the lessons to be learned? Comparisons? promises? Is there anything good that comes from a flood? And how do we prepare for floods in our life? That's The Rock with Bishop Harold Steve Blair. Listen Tuesday, November 28th at 10 a.m. right here on the family station Love 101, celebrating 30 years of music, family, and love.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. And a very special welcome to our guests today, Sharnette Clark and Richard Dennison. Sharnette and Richard, how are you both doing?
I'm doing great, Lady Scott Walters. And how are you?
I am giving thanks and I am anticipating the rich discussion that we will share today. It's a big topic, and I'm really looking forward to learning as much as possible.
Sure. I'm doing great, guys. Thanks, Sharnette and Tamika and Jamaica. Pardon my
Hi.
mask. I'm taking care of my father, so I have to be extra cautious because he's not well.
Awesome.
Okay, Richard, we understand that. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, if you are just tuning in to us on Love 101, you are at your favorite program. I know it is Family Time, and we want to hear from you or listeners. Today, we are discussing the cost of cancer care, and we would love for you to let us know if you were able to afford or finance cancer care for yourself or a loved one, and if yes, how were you able to do it? We ask that you keep your WhatsApp, text, or voice note 30 seconds or less, and you may send it to 876-997-3125, or you may comment live on our YouTube or Facebook page. It's a big topic, so let's jump right in. Sharnette and Richard, none of us knows what the future holds. I know we certainly wish we did, but it is unexpected. We can never tell what will be the next path, or in games we may say the next card that you're dealt. We do pray that we live long, healthy lives, but in reality, things like cancer can invade our plans. Our personal battles with cancer may differ. It may be directly, it may be with a family member, a friend, but regardless, there is something that is constant, and that is the heavy financial burden that it comes with. Richard, our condolences on your mom's passing. And I have to ask Richard, with your mom going through that journey, how was your family able to finance the care, the cancer care for your mom?
Sure. Well, I'd like to point out first that cancer can strike at any age and at any time. And it's something that most of us probably in our day-to-day lives don't consider, addressing until it's upon us. And this in a certain way was true for my mother and my family. I was abroad, so I wasn't around her enough to monitor her in getting into the 70s, to get her to, take regular checkups and such. And as such, the cancer in her case snuck up on her. It started off as cervical cancer, but actually morphed into two different cancers, being cervical and, endometrial and colon cancer, because there's a narrow wall between the two areas. And so it became far greater monster than maybe most people would experience. So I would like to, kind of say that not every cancer experience is the same. My mother's would probably be considered a late stage diagnosis, because the time we realized what was going on, she was about maybe a stage 3 heading into stage 4. So the overall cancer took about roughly a year and a half from our discovering what it was to her finally passing in Christmas of 2019 for it to, have run its course. Now, luckily, Mom was a cautious person about insurance. And that actually helped a lot to allay the burden, because it's a double whammy, if you will. It's more than just the impact of knowing you have a loved one who's going to suffer the way cancer makes you suffer. as well as gathering the financial resources to start the fight to either preserve life or reduce pain, because it can be one or the other or both at the same time, because at some point when you realize there's not much that can be done, you still are spending money, Now,
Insurance played a great part for you, Richard. Insurance played a crucial part in your ability to finance her care.
Yes. Yes, because I tell you, the cancer drugs are extremely expensive. The anti-cancer, the chemotherapy, as well as radiotherapy, if you go that route or need to go that route. Doctors' visits, tie in. And again, I have to say, it is going to be very different depending on who gets sick, how long you're sick for, how long you're hospitalized. At one point, we ended up with a bill for a hospital I won't name. But when they finally printed it out over she was there about maybe 2 weeks, it was something that stretched from, I'd say, the ceiling to the floor when you folded it out, and it was finished on the printer. And it was up to about $1 million and change. Well, just by luck, my mother had taken out an additional policy to the policy she had for health that covered hospital stays up to, I think, $1 million and change. So luckily, and this is just not even by plan, because you can't plan for cancer to that degree, the insurance covered at least that particular hospital stay. Now, had she lived longer, had she been sicker prior to and had an extended hospital stay, it would have eclipsed even that insurance. So it's hard to even target a number, because you don't know what are you going to get hit with.
Yeah. Richard, with those costs, I will ask, that bill you mentioned was just one bill.
Yes.
What was the duration of your mom's diagnosis, the time frame from her diagnosis to the time that she passed?
Right. That was about 1.5 years, roughly.
So we're talking about within a 1.5 year time span.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I know you mentioned before, like the different tests that may have to be conducted, all depending on the type of cancer that one has and the different stage that it is at. But can you recall what were some of the major cost items? So in that case, hospitalization, hospital stay would have clearly been one, because that bill you mentioned was just for a short week, and that was just one bill.
Yes.
What are some of
they
the
itemize everything? I'm talking, if you get a Band-Aid on, that's a cost, and it's all listed out, and you're paying for everything. Yes, and this is of course going private. Yes.
What about some of the tests? Because we know that testing plays a crucial part in treatment, for one to decide what will be the next course of treatment. And so I know some of these costs can be extremely expensive. I've heard persons make reference to MRIs and CT scan.
Yes.
I'm not sure in cancer care if those same tests apply, or we, do additional tests.
They can. And
what are some of those? Yeah.
Right. I'll tell you the situation. My mother's cancer spreads throughout the body, and you don't know where it's going to land, that is going to hurt or kill you. Right. And so these tests are required in order to track down, to help assist the doctor in knowing how to address the cancer wherever it is spread, and to even determine if it's in remission, if you're under chemotherapy, so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit of testing, I would envision. In my mother's case, she had cancer spread in her abdominal area, and it formed cysts, and these cysts began to grow, and it was impacting her breathing. So it was literally, almost starving off her oxygen and forcing her lungs in. And the only remedy was to use scans to find pockets where they could literally suck fluid out from these sacs that were building up inside her abdominal area, because, your diaphragm is in that space. So it was a repeated series of tests over time, simply to allow her to live.
The tests were necessary to determine.
Yes.
Yeah, the tests were necessary to determine the next course of treatment.
Correct.
Now, we are going to to continue the conversation. And I just want to remind our listeners that we want to find out if you are able to finance the care for cancer care for yourself or a loved one. And if so, how were you able to do it? We are really looking forward to your response. Remember to send a text or a voice note via WhatsApp to 876-997-3125, no longer than 30 seconds, or watch and comment live on our Facebook and YouTube page. We must apologize this evening that our studio lines are down, and so you will not be able to call us in studio. However, our guests today, Sharnette and Richard, are also willing to answer your questions. So please go ahead and ask your questions as you please on the mounting cost of cancer care, questions relating to financing the cost, or what it took from Richard to deal with the cancer care of his mom. They will be more than happy to answer your queries. And just so you know, the numbers for Family Life Ministries head office in Kingston are 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. When we get back from this break, we'll still be here. Soon come.
Embrace the Promise, the Worship Edition, Night 1, Friday, October 20. Free admission worship conference with Ron Canoli and O'Neill Watson.
Harold, do you have a minute? I need your help with something.
What that know?
I'm filling out this form from the company's office, and there's a section about beneficial ownership, but I don't even know what that means.
Well, a beneficial owner is anybody that owns or controls a company. That could be anyone, a shareholder, director, or manager of the company. The company's office also needs to know the identity of all these people, including their occupation, nationality, date of birth, current address, and a copy of their ID.
Okay, I think I understand now.
One more thing. Remember, company's office needs this information when you're starting a company, filing annual returns, or making changes to the beneficial owners. They're also going to need you to maintain a record of these persons.
For more information, visit orcjamaica.com and bohubjamaica.com.
Help keep your engine clean and performing at its best with Texaco with Techron. Texaco with Techron cleans your engine as you drive, helping to give you the power and performance you need. Fill up at Texaco, star of the Jamaican road.
Jamaica, our natural paradise, is filled with diverse animals and plants that benefit us in different ways. That's why we're drafting policies to safeguard biodiversity in areas such as Black River and Pedro Keys. We have also declared 15 areas as ecologically sensitive. Do your part and protect our natural resources, thereby securing the livelihoods of the fisherfolk and farmers who depend on these areas. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, protecting our natural resources, creating a sustainable environment.
Help keep your engine clean and performing at its best with Texaco with Techron. Texaco with Techron cleans your engine as you drive, helping to give you the power and performance you need. Fill up at Texaco, star of the Jamaican road.
Welcome back. It is now 5:48 p.m. and you're tuned to Love 101. This is Family Time, brought to you by the Family Life Ministries. Family Life Ministries provide counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Listen out for numbers for our Kingston office later on in the program. If you're just joining, today we are talking about the cost of cancer care, and our very special guests are Sharnette Clark, financial guru and advisor, and Richard Dennison, who had to care for his mom who had cancer. Now, Richard, in our previous conversation, you mentioned one of the saving grace, or one of the greatest thing that enabled you to care for your mom, was the insurance that she had. You mentioned there was a whopping bill which exceeded $1 million, and with insurance you were able to cover the majority of those costs. And so, Sharnette, I want to say, or I want to ask you, how prepared can we be for the financial cost of cancer?
Hi, Richard. My condolences to you. And I'm happy that you're able to speak about the experience with your mom in terms of informing our viewers or countrymen about what it entails in terms of stages, in terms of diagnosis, in terms of cost. Lady Tamika, I don't know how prepared you can apart from getting some critical illness coverage insurance in your portfolio. Um, and that has to be done before a diagnosis. I've received calls. I remember one particular instant, I met this lady in a bank and she asked me just to view her portfolio, and I did so, call her back. And I said to her, I am just a little concerned about the amount of coverage that you have. At the time, it was 2.9 in total, but she was approaching age 50. And age 60 is where most of the critical illnesses cuts off. We don't issue it after age 60. We have one that goes up to 64. So I thought it was pertinent for her to know. And the cost also goes up with age. Upon speaking to her, she agreed to increase the policy, and she came exactly 30 days later to speak to me in terms of how much she could get. She wanted the maximum. And she mentioned, oh, the fact that I was also just diagnosed 30 days ago, it would be a good time to increase. All I could do at that time, Tamika, is to write what is called completed a claim form for her. I wasn't able to sell her additional critical illness coverage, but just to claim on what she had there. Thankfully, the cancer was just at stage 1, so the cost would have been lower than in the case of Richard's mom finding out when it is at a later stage.
Thank you so much, Sharnette. Richard, in this case, the individual Sharnette had contact with, she was just approaching 50, you said, Sharnette. Richard, how old was your mom at the age of diagnosis when she was diagnosed?
I recall it was 72.
72 years. Now, I know we often think of age, and so I will ask, as we think about planning for the financial cost of cancer, how soon does one get started? In that case, based on what you explained, you were not able to sell her additional plan or additional coverage because she was already diagnosed, so she could only claim on what she had. So how do we think about approaching it in terms of age? Is there an age that's too young? Do we only consider coverage at the ages that they recommend for a mammogram or a pap smear? When do we get started?
We're talking about just Richard's mom now or any other adult. But my company is the only one that is now doing critical illness coverage from 0 to 15 years, starting for children, because child cancer is also popular in our island. How many times have we interviewed persons on various radio stations here, and they're seeking donation to send their children abroad or for treatment? So we have children can get up to 10 million in critical illness coverage. And like I said, it's issued between ages 0 to 15 years. So if that child is 16, they're not able to get that critical illness coverage. But you can move now to age 18. When they get to 18 years, we have critical illness that start as early as 18 years old. And the maximum coverage is 8 million. You have another one that starts at age 20, and the coverage on that is 35 million. And we have one just for the ladies that covers varied cancers relating to us, and also ectopic pregnancies, emergency pregnancies, that goes up to 17.5 million. So there are options, and you don't only have to purchase one. If I have the 8 million and I feel like I want to get the 35 million, once you are able to, whether one up to 8 million doesn't require medical, but once you're able to pass the medical, or if they require certain tests, for example, men over 45 will have to do the PSA test, and that's just for the prostate. It's just a blood test. We're not going to be doing all of the required tests that the doctors would have done that the men are now afraid of.
I know those.
Tests. And for the ladies, they may require mammogram within the last year, depending on how old you are, mammogram. And once you can pass those medicals, you can add any amount of critical illness. I have a client at one point had 90 million in terms of critical illness because the nature of his job, he's exposed to critical illnesses, so he wanted to be covered. So he didn't really believe in insurance, but critical illness coverage.
All right, thank you so much, Sharnette. You mentioned insurance for starting as early as 0. What does one do to have a child? Does coverage start in the womb? Can I get an insurance plan from when I'm pregnant, or is it at the point of birth of my child that I can get coverage, insurance coverage?
At the time of birth, and conditions apply. The child should be out of the hospital, so the child should not be hospitalized for any reason. So once the child is out of the hospital, similarly to your health insurance, we can have you insure that client, so that child. So what we'll need, they wouldn't have their passport yet, obviously, a passport size photograph certified by a JP and their birth certificate and the parents' information. We encourage also that the parents would have been insured. But if not, then we can also still insure the child. We can onboard you afterwards. But we know that child cancer is popular. And if the child is diagnosed with any of those cancer, again, we wouldn't be able to sell you a coverage once you are already diagnosed.
Now I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to make, I don't know if it's a good comparison, but I know culturally, sometimes persons are afraid to do wills because we believe that once you write a will, it means that your death is near. So persons have those challenges when someone passes and then their estate has to be managed. In Jamaica, do you find that, because I know insurance for adults may be more popular, but for parents, for loved ones, godparents, aunts, anyone who has a minor or responsibility for a minor, to think of cancer coverage or insurance, do persons actually make a purchase, or they think somehow they're doomed? If you think about it, then it's going to happen. Do you find that happening in the space?
Well, for me, I'm going to speak about myself. I have critical illness insurance, and I have done an increase even recently because I am all of 46, and with age comes certain illnesses. And we have to bring ourselves to the point where it is just a safety net. I am not expecting or want to be diagnosed to get all that millions. But if it should occur, I want to make sure that I can deal with treatment, initial treatment. I can deal with continued treatment, my scans, my tests. As Richard mentioned, you have to do tests to know where the cancer is, the stage of the cancer, where else can the cancer go, as he said, based on what his mom had, it moved from where it was to the colon. And delayed treatment sometimes can cause a cancer to move from stage 1 to stage 2 rapidly, stage 2 to stage 3. So you want to make sure that you're doing all these tests in time and doing your surgeries to make sure that it is that you can live another 10 or 15 years. And I've had clients who are, my client actually with the 2.9 is, she's well, she's back at work, dealing with her follow-ups, and she's doing well. As a matter of fact, since diagnosis, she has had her husband insured with critical illness coverage insurance, because she said based on the cost of cancers and finding out at stage 1, she doesn't want the family to go through that aspect of a financial burden anymore with just 2.9, yes, but she had to back it up with some stuff.
Yes.
So you want
I'd like to make a point that's very important to consider. The nature of how chemotherapy drugs work is not a one and done.
Exactly.
Yes.
They'll tell you that you need 12 treatments.
Yes, it's a series of shots you have to get over time to ensure that you beat down the cancer enough, almost to complete zero if you hope to survive, because it will resurge. It's a thing that multiplies. So typically when you get an injection, because I had to become a cancer, kind of cancer and chemotherapy expert overnight. just in my desperation to try and save my mother. Things I'd never considered. As much as I like to
Right.
think of myself
'Cause
as a knowledgeable guy, you just don't encounter this often. And so that's a very
Exactly.
critical thing to bear in mind, that every time you have to get those shots, it's a cost. And it has to be repeated over time. Now, my mother was caught so late and she was so old. And by the time she got so sick, and there's a whole story to that, but that's probably a whole show. But, you know, she didn't have to go through a whole lot of cancer, chemotherapy treatments. Had she had that, I don't think we could have afforded it, you know, because I had to spend tons of money.
Right.
I understand, Richard, and we're going to a break, but I will pick up on that point. To all our listeners, you are tuned to Love 101, and you are listening to Family Time. Today's topic is cancer care, and we want to find out if you were able to cover the financial cost associated with cancer care, and if so, how were you able to do it? We are speaking with our financial guru, Sharnette Clark, and also Richard, who gives an account of his journey and experience in financing the cancer care for his mom. Now, Family Life Ministries head office in Kingston you may reach them at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. Now it's break time, but just before we go to a break, we want you to get the Word to Flesh moment with Rev Mike. In this episode of WTF Words to Flesh Moments with Rev Mike, you'll be blessed. Words to Flesh is up next.
Psalm 103 has a powerful prayer. It says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives your iniquities, who heals all your diseases, who satisfies you with good, so that your youth is renewed like an eagle's." Are you struggling with cancer or one of humanity's other major diseases? I suggest you make this prayer part of your spiritual arsenal in dealing with the big C. Here's another Bible reminder that will help you deal with the financial ripple effects of the big C. Philippians 4:19. "My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus." Are you struggling with paying for your medical needs as you struggle with your disease? Then cry out to God for supernatural help as you try to help yourself. Then here's another practical Bible directive to consider. 1 John 3:17. "If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need and does nothing to help them, how can the love of God be in that person?" Do you know someone struggling with the big C and in need of financial help? Then do something to help them today. Otherwise, ignoring their problem might be an indication that the love of God does not reside in you. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
Is your wealth, so come we start the conversation. Make we rise and immunize all across the nation. The ministry is giving us the motivation to get your infants routine immunization. Protect the toddlers from all diseases. Tetanus, rubella, whooping cough, and the measles. Polymyelitis, mumps and the flu, plus tuberculosis, to name a few.
Rise to immunize. Eliminating diseases saves lives. Visit your nearest clinic or health center for more information, or log on to www.moh.gov.jl.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness with support from USAID and PAHO.
For over 100 years, Grace Foods has placed focus on building our communities and changing lives through love and care, one graceful wish at a time. Do you have a project that can uplift your community, empower young minds, or enhance local sports? Nominate and be a change maker. Visit gracefulwish.com to learn more and submit your nominations. Help us to grant graceful wishes this season and nurture communities for a brighter tomorrow.
Importers, are you tired of the hassle? Are you tired of the wait? Value your time because we value yours. Request contactless clearance through your agent to clear your personal, non-commercial shipments at the port. It is more efficient. It is secure. For more details, email Jamaica Customs at contactlessclearance@jca.gov.jm. Contactless Clearance, powered by the Jamaica Customs Agency. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
Welcome back, and you are tuned to Family Time. It is now 6:05 p.m. We are talking about cancer care in Jamaica and how can you finance cancer care. We ask our listeners and our viewers to share with us if you were able to finance cancer care for yourself or for a loved one, and how were you able to do so. Now, Richard, just before the break, you were discussing the different stages of treatment that your mom had to go through. It's not just a one fix. There are different tests that need to be done. And if it is, it's like medication. Perhaps when we get a prescription and we need to take this medication for a week or for 2 weeks, with cancer, we can't afford to slip because I'm sure it will impact our ability to recover. So if it is you need to do 12 treatments, Richard or Shernate, then we need to have coverage and be able to finance all 12. One from the 12 is not gonna be good enough, or even 6 from the 12. Whatever it is that is required, we will need to do that. And so, Richard, as you mentioned earlier, that your mom, she was very prudent in relation to insurance. I wanted to know a little bit more. Do you recall, or are you aware if she had multiple plans that was able to assist her at that stage? And if you are aware at what stage she would have, decided, hey, insurance is a good thing, because I know her diagnosis came at a later stage.
Yes, my mother was pretty good about insurance in general, life insurance, health insurance, all actually came into play in the end. Because even after you pass, of course, there are the subsequent costs, funeral, lingering medical bills, etc., that follow on after the person is deceased. She did have multiple plans, and that helped also with different companies, actually. So she sort of was an insurance advocate, and very much invested in that area for herself and for my father. So yes, and I followed suit myself here. So it's definitely advisable to, you just, again, you don't know what could come at you. You have no clue. And as I mentioned within, especially cancer is particularly expensive because each shot could be tens of thousands of dollars per shot. And if you don't get it, chances are, or you don't maintain the schedule of injections, it gives cancer the time to resurge or come back at you. And then you have to go more into the chemotherapy. So, oh boy, I can tell you, it's very important. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Richard. I have a follow-up question for you. When you mentioned those mounting costs, I know that in your situation, the insurance played a crucial part in your ability to pay. But what was your experience with the health services or the hospital as it relates to payment? Is there a payment plan that is available? Is treatment withheld until one has the ability to pay? What's that process like?
Boy, it's a hodgepodge. I'll say this. At one point, my mother had gone 2 nights without sleep, fighting to breathe. And it was at the moment she was ready to give up because her lungs had filled with so much water that she could not. She had to, if she didn't stay awake to draw breath, she would have died. And the doctor who was taking care of her literally, left her own birthday party, and God bless her, okay, to come and to suck fluid out of my mother's abdominal area to allow her to survive that night. Bye. Let me tell you, cancer is a monster. And, God forbid it ever visit itself upon any of you listening today. But preparation is everything, because it will hurt you psychologically, financially, emotionally. It drives a wedge in a family, and the longer it pulls and drags on that family, the worse it gets. So I can't say more about how important it is to be as prepared today. Don't wait, because the clock is ticking on all of us. And God knows when and who and how to access it. So, yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Richard. I feel you, and I know you're sharing from your heart. And a very important part of that message that you just shared is it is more than just a financial burden. However, if the financial care is limited, then it will further impact family relations. It will become an even greater burden on one emotionally. And I definitely I feel you. I can understand that. And so Shernette, my question to you, Richard mentioned that his mom was in her 70s. At what stage can one, I know we can get it as early as possible, but is there a cutoff point where if you didn't get it before, you can't get it again? So in Richard's mom case, being diagnosed at, let's say, 72 years of age, if she did not have insurance at 72, would she have been able to purchase insurance at that age before diagnosis?
So you asked the question about insurance, and I must make the difference. Yes, you can get life insurance at 72 up to age 80 years. But for critical illness coverage insurance, we have one that is issued between 18 and 60. We have another that is issued between 18 and 64, and another that is 20 and 64. So after that, you cannot get critical illness insurance. Someone asked the question, why would you give a 5-year-old critical illness insurance? We have seen it on Ray of Hope. We have seen it on many programs where children, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 6 and 7-year-old dying from cancer. So that's the only response I have for you. If it is that you have the money put away for that eventuality, then you don't want to consider critical illness insurance. But remember, it pays you out a lump sum for the coverage amount. Like I said, I don't wish any of my sons to be diagnosed with a critical illness coverage insurance. But with the other expenses that the family has to be dealing with every single month, if any of them should be diagnosed, I want to know that money is put aside so there are no delays in treatment. There are no GoFundMe is needed, but monies, if there are anything that is needed, should be something to make up at the back end. But I want to make sure that my responsibility for my children is, if anything happens to them health-wise, that their health insurance is intact and their critical illness insurance is intact. Same for me. If I should be diagnosed, I am the main breadwinner for my household. If I should be diagnosed, I will have to be faced with dealing with treatment and getting well. I won't be able to work. So what is going to be happening with the regular expenses? Food, my mortgage, school fees, lunch money, and also for any other eventualities. What is going to happen if I don't? I earn commission. So if I don't work, I don't get paid. What is going to happen if I am diagnosed, God forbid?
Yeah.
How do we express love? Many aspects. I love you comes in many ways. And one of those is making sure that if anything should happen, my children, my family is secure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Shernette. I want to ask Richard, and I know we'll go to a break quickly, but I have to ask, is there any government support, government financial support for cancer patients that you would have possibly experienced or encountered during your treatment and care of your mom?
There are really some reductions in costs for tests and such, because my mother got a mix of public and private. The fact, as I mentioned earlier, that she had 2 cancers meant that we couldn't go fully private, even though if we could have afforded it, one way or the other, because again, it just, there's certain aspects to cancer that private can't cover, that we weren't aware of until it happened. So there was, when we did go public, horror story, I have to say, for some part of it. And I'm sure many people have shared stories with you, maybe on this format or otherwise. But there is some assistance there. I can't speak to the totality of it because, again, it was a mix for my mother, and it's been some time. But yes, there is something there. And again, I don't know what has changed since then. There is a very big push on the government's part to improve healthcare. So I can't speak to the present, but yes, go ahead.
I want to expand on that question to Tamika. For persons who
are so Charlotte, I'm gonna ask you to go into it just after the break, because I really know that a lot of persons, that's a big one, and persons really want to know. To our listeners, you will hear that detail when we return from our break, because we are heading into our final break. This is Family Time on Love 101. And remember, you can watch us, you can listen on our Love 101's Facebook or YouTube page. Now, Family Time is produced by the Family Life Ministries. For our social media interaction, we ask that you tell us, how were you able to deal with the financial cost of cancer care for yourself or for a loved one? You may send us your text, WhatsApp, or voice notes to 876-997-3125. Don't go away. We will return this evening to continue our final leg of discussion on the cost of cancer care with Richard Dennison, who cared for his mom who had cancer and passed from cancer, regrettably, and also our in-house financial guru, Sharnette Clark. Stick around, there's more to come.
Follow Grace Sardine, follow the better flavor. Grace Sardine with the chef and the beginner. Follow the one with pepper, that are the winner. Shop on supermarkets, everybody sell it. Do all of them nice. Pass the part, make push it.
Grace Sardines, follow the better flavor.
Harold, do you have a minute? I need your help with something.
What that no?
I'm filling out this form from the company's office, and there's a section about beneficial ownership, but I don't even know what that means.
Well, a beneficial owner is anybody that owns or controls a company. That could be anyone, a shareholder, director, or manager of the company. The company's office also needs to know the identity of all these people, including their occupation, nationality, date of birth, current address, and a copy of their ID.
Okay, I think I understand now.
One more thing. Remember, company's office needs this information when you're starting a company, filing annual returns, or making changes to the beneficial owners. They're also going to need you to maintain a record of these persons.
For more information, visit orcjamaica.com and bohubjamaica.com.
We all trust the traditional home remedies of our parents, especially when they've been passed down through generations. Benjamin's Honey Time captures the same trusted home remedy tradition in a bottle. Get relief from irritating cold symptoms, cough, and sore throat with the warm, comforting taste of honey, rum, and lime. Benjamin's Honey Time, the formula that works with the soothing taste of tradition. Benjamin's, a trusted name for over a century.
Welcome back, everyone. You are tuned to Love 101, and this is Family Time, brought to you by the Family Life Ministries. Now, Family Life Ministries provide counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Listen out for the numbers in Kingston for a Kingston office at the end of the program. Remember, we are live on Facebook and on YouTube, so tune in and be sure to leave a comment. Today, our topic is the cost of cancer care, and with us is Sharnette Clark, financial guru, and Richard Dennison, who gives his personal account of caring for his mom, who had cancer. Now, Sharnette, before we went for the break, you wanted to share as it relates to the government benefit that one may access with regarding cancer care.
So it's more in particular with government employees. There is the Medigap Plus that deals with some aspect of critical illness, but of course there's going to be a cap. I think it's 2 million. So the companies that are under the government threshold, and there are some private companies that may offer additional critical illnesses to their employees. So you can also make sure, and it's normally at a minimal cost. For example, they may say to get the plus of some additional benefit, maybe $600 or $1,000 for your family. Make sure that you're maximizing on those opportunities.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. We have a comment here. Now, Sherry from Spanish Town, St. Catherine, she says, good afternoon, panel and everyone. My mom was 89 years old when she was diagnosed with colon cancer. She goes on to advise she saw the different changes in her mom as she cared for her, and she went on to be, she saw changes in her mom in 2017 of January, and she went on to be diagnosed just 2 months later. So she saw the changes in January, and by March 2017, she was diagnosed. And then 2017, the cost at the time was $36,000. And regrettably, she passed away a mere 5 months later, and that's 5 months from when she noticed the changes. January, her mom passed away in May, on May 5th. And she says, I just want to give God thanks and praise my siblings and I were able to give her the best care during her latter years. So Cherry is showing there that the point of diagnosis for her mom to the point of her death regrettably was very short. She passed away from a heart attack, but I know that sometimes cause of death can be directly related to the different illnesses. We have Faith from Washington Garden. She says, good evening, everyone. She says, Sharnette, I think this one is for you. She says there are individuals out here 65, over 65, without illnesses, trying to get health insurance coverage, but can't. Why? Is there a way to go around that?
There's a cutoff age at age 64, which I had mentioned before with health insurance. There is a company, and I won't mention the company's name. For those of you who want the information, will have to contact me. That is geared to retired persons. So over the 65 years, I think it's up to 75 that you can get that health insurance. And to our farmers, so once you have a RADA ID, and our fisher folks, their insurance, health insurance also goes up to 75 years. So those are ways around it. But you will have to contact me privately for that one. I'm not at liberty to mention company names.
All right, we understand and we appreciate that. I want to ask, because we use the word sometimes interchangeably, and I know that ought not to be so. But when we talk about health insurance and we talk about life insurance and then we talk about investment, when it comes to our financial options, is one better than the other?
I think your portfolio should be balanced. So investment is really you putting money on a consistent basis to buy a big ticket item. You have a goal in mind, whether to purchase home, your car, or any other emergencies, repair on your home, your car. That is investment, or you're looking for opportunities to go out into development. But one diagnosis, bear in mind, can wipe out your entire investment. So you want to make sure that you have your critical illness coverage insurance for the event of a diagnosis, cancer, stroke, heart attack, kidney failure, just to name a few. And your life insurance, as Richard mentioned, that his mom had the critical, but remember, after she passes, the expenses, the hospital expenses, funeral expenses had to be dealt with. So the life insurance comes in place for that. And if there are properties involved, when a main breadwinner die or a co-applicant, you have to deal with stamp duty and transfer tax where your estates are concerned. And if you left a business, you want to make sure that your creditors and your customers don't panic after your passing. So monies are there to deal with your inventory, your supplies, and maybe also hire someone that is competent enough to run that business. The health insurance is to deal with dental, your diagnostic tests, so your MRIs, your CT scan, immunization, maternity benefits, optical, and also some aspect of surgery, because there are health cards that has a major medical amount. Some may have 3 million, some may have 6, 5, but that is for the lifetime of the card. So that can assist in surgeries. Now you want to make sure that your portfolio is balanced. So let's say I only have critical illness insurance. After a diagnosis, that plan terminates and pays me the lump sum. What happens after I die? What happens if I need to go to the dentist or to do some more tests? My health card covers those eventualities. So a balanced portfolio is important, and you'll just discuss your budget with your financial advisor. And I'm sure I can work something out for you with the budget in mind in terms of having that balanced portfolio.
So it's really important that we have a mix and know that we're not limited to any one. You don't just have to have insurance for life. You can have for specific areas like critical illness. You can have your general health coverage, health insurance, and you can have life insurance and different investments. So a mix.
Investments.
Okay. Richard,
Yes.
I want to ask if you, looking back at everything that took place with your mom, if you had to give advice to anyone who has a loved one, in your case, it's your mom, what advice would you give that would be best for, I don't know, we can't say prevention in this case, but what would be the best advice you give ahead of a diagnosis or eventualities that we really are uncertain of?
Oh boy. Do you have a couple hours?
We have a minute.
It's so wide ranging. You know, one thing I was actually going to interject on another. There are little things that we don't think about. For example, you have personal valuables and assets, jewelry, gold, right? And when you die, and furniture, whatnot, you leave a burden on those who are looking for money, if you don't have it in insurance and such, to then meet the bills that may have accrued because of your health condition and the care. And such as, for example, my mother left jewelry, diamond, gold. I don't know anything about it. Nobody's an expert here. And so you invariably end up losing money, right? Trying to dispose of those assets to cover bills. And all it would have taken, and my mom did try, would be, and I'd advise this for anyone listening, to sit down and go through all your valuables. And because you know, and once you die, that information is lost. Write it down. You know, I have these, let's say this particular ring, even the wedding rings and such, right? These are all going to be things that may come into play should you have to cover costs. So detail all of that today and make sure you make copies of that and distribute it among family members so that should the time come, they don't have to be guessing and losing on what may be critical funds needed. I'm going to be writing a book, to be honest. I'm going to either do something on a broadcast or a book, because there's a lot there. And I, like I said, I became an overnight expert on cancer care, on, you know, dealing with the costs. There's a lot of detail that we just wouldn't be able to cover in this format.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. We look out for that book and whatever it is that you do in terms of share your journey. It is priceless. And we thank you so much. We really thank you so much.
And you can find me on the internet, Richard Dennison, YouTube. If you're throwing scouts with it, definitely go and you see my face. So I'm not hard to find.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. And importantly, so you heard, our listeners and our viewers, you heard it from Richard, who has his personal account. He experienced caring for his mom with cancer. He advises, look, get your affairs together, your insurance together, and some amount of estate planning. What it is that you have, that what are your valuables in the event you need to know, hey, these are assets I have to dispose of as it comes to care, because even with insurance, sometimes it's just not enough. And so the advice from our financial advisor is that, look, mix your portfolio as best as you can to see if you can get as much or extend coverage as much as possible. Sharnette, I will give you half a minute to say your parting words to our listeners and viewers.
Bear in mind that cancer treatment varies based on the type of treatment, based on the frequency, and based on the goal that you're trying to achieve. Critical illness coverage insurance, again, cannot be issued after diagnosis. It has to be purchased before. And normally there's a waiting period. We have one waiting period is 3 months, another 6 months. So after purchasing, you'll have to wait. Why wait? Why not put in that safety net that is going to protect you and your family? Breast Cancer Awareness Month was last month, and this month is prostate. You don't want to wait, and you don't want to face those finances alone. So put in that safety net, and I can be contacted on the various platforms that have been provided for you. It would be my pleasure to work out a portfolio for you that is fitting to your budget.
Thank you so much, Sharnette, and thank you so much, Richard. Thanks for being here with us. To our listeners and viewers, we are at the end of our program. It is Family Time, brought to you by the Family Life Ministries. Now, if you have any questions of a personal nature, or you are concerned about a family member or friend, please give us a call at the Family Life Ministries for more information on services for our counselors that are available in Kingston and other parts of the island. Please contact our head office at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. Please note that our Portmore office is now closed, so all counseling related matters should be referred to our Kingston office at 1 Cecilio Avenue. Now, remember, appointments must be made, so be sure to call the numbers detailed. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with the Family Life Ministries, be sure to visit our Facebook page, FLM Family Life Ministries, and be sure to subscribe and share our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLM JA, or follow us on Instagram, FLM JA. Before we leave you this evening, here is our Bible verse for today. John 6, verse 35. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Join us again next week at 5:30 p.m. on the same channel, Love 101. Remember, you can also join on our Facebook, YouTube page as well, and via the Love 101's Instagram page as well. Our YouTube channel has other informations about our other programs, so be sure to check that out. And thanks again to our very special guests, Sharnette Clark and Richard Dennison. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, our studio facilitator, Timoy Butler, and of course, you, our valued listeners and viewers. I am your host for today, Tamika Scott Walters. It's always a pleasure. Stay safe, stay well, and stay blessed.